The James Hardy 12-Hour is proudly brought to you by James Hardy Industries in association with Palmer Tube Mills, Bridgestone, that's confidence, Castrol Liquid Engineering, Telecom Mobile Net Australia's own, Windsor Smith Boots, and BP Visco.
Car racing have sweated out a famous history and a glorious past. And now, in its third year, the James Hardy 12-Hour is establishing a glorious future. Because this racing. Real driving by the seat of your pants.
I'm pulling 5-4, Ross.
Oh, come on. Probably should be passing the guy.
Oh, look, I'm all over him like a cheap suit. 155 clicks. Bit of a brush of the brake. Third gear. Get a bit of this in here, McLeod.
Oh, he's doing all right this time, Cropton.
Oh, come on. I've made 40 car links on the bike.
Right down the inside. Give it a go.
Oh, he was all out of shape. The guy's getting frustrated. Not to mention me with you babbling and me here, Ross.
A test of endurance. And ultimately, a true test of man and machine.
This year it's been a battle all the way, every minute, every second of it.
We're flat out. We've been flat out all day, and we're just going to stay flat out.
What tactics? Go like hell.
The James Hardy 12-Hour. It's now Australia's premier production.
Yes, indeed. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this very famous mountain, Mount Panorama in Bathurst, about a couple of 100 kilometres northwest of Sydney, for the James Hardy 12-Hour production car race. When we say 12 hours, we mean endurance. They just keep going round and round and round. And sitting next to me is a guy who I'm sure would love to be out there, but can't. John Bow, good morning.
Good morning, Tim.
Why aren't you out there?
Well, I hope to drive the Mazda as I did last year, but fortunately for Mazda and unfortunately for me, they acquired BP sponsorship. My alliance is with Shell and has been for a long time, sure. And I had to decline, but it gives me an opportunity to see how you guys work.
Well, mate, we've got plenty of hours to show you how we work.
Yes, certainly.
A lot of them. I look forward to talking to you right throughout the day.
Thanks, Tim.
John Bow, well, out on the track, it's pretty much going according to plan, but 1 hour and 15 minutes ago, they charged off the grid in the dark. Let's have a look.
In the pits this morning are Juan Fangio's tyres, tyre warmers on them, Juan. Is that going to help you in the race?
Yeah, definitely, because it's very cold right now, and it will be very good help for the beginning of the race.
Alan James, when did you last get up this early?
Well, I don't think I'd even get up this early to go on holidays, to be honest with you.
What's the atmosphere like here?
Oh, it's great. I think it's all part of it. I mean, seeing the disc glowing bright red and being up this, I think it's great.
Alan Grosh, you're not in your driver's suit. Don't want to drive in the dark?
Oh, it's all a bit early, isn't it, John?
For Wayne Gardner, the last 36 hours have been a nightmare. Friday evening, he crashed his $170,000 Honda.
Trying to grab pole position. I was on a hot lap and, you know, tried a bit too hard.
Ian Palmer, a courageous effort, quarter of an hour to go, and the car's still being built. How do you feel?
I feel really confident. They've done a fantastic job. It's a credit to everyone, especially Tony Warriner. and the TAF crew. I'm very proud to be associated with it, and I still feel we'll do very well.
A sensational pole position time, 146 kilometres an hour, nearly 10 seconds faster than just 2 years ago. The leading Class C car there, the Honda NSX, of Ian Palmer, Wayne Gardner and Ross Palmer. And then further down, the leading Class D car is the Holden Commodore V8. Tony Scott, Peter Brock, Wayne Park, 12th grid position. 17th grid position brings us up to the leading S sports car class car. That's the MR2, heading a real bunch of them. They're very close together too in the leading Class B car. Murray Carter, 19th grid position in that Pulsar Triple S. Further down, a tremendous battle looking imminent in the Class A, 30th, 31st and 32nd grid position. The Toyota Corolla lays a TX3 and Suzuki GTI separated by just 0.15 of a second. Then running through the field further, a number of those smaller class cars, but also some of the slower cars from the bigger classes like that Holden Commodore, the Ford Falcon there, a brace of Corollas to take on the Suzuki Swift GTIs, and perhaps a late stretching down at the end of the field in 54th grid position, just one car short of capacity, possibly a late stretching for car 59. Fifth row of the grid, see Subaru Turbo RS and Ford Falcon XR6 away. And a great start for the two Mazdas, a slow start for the Lotus. But from the row one into the lead goes Charlie O'Brien, supported well by Gary Walden from the second row. Larry Perkins took a little while to get the Lotus going. Should get going as he storms up the hill. Troubles too early on, and from pit lane for car number 39, the Falcon that was damaged, Christopher Sexton, and now the amazing sight on Mountain Straight. And Peter Brock, good morning. Is it a good morning? But that's the sight that drivers see as they wend their way up the mountain with, and that's the sight behind in the rear vision mirror. And they have some 2.5 hours of that, sunrise due at 6:20. But of course, the light will be filtering through before then. And good morning and welcome to John Bow. John, nice to have you here, but disappointing, no doubt, that recent sponsorship by BP kept you out of the Mazda team this year.
Yes, it is, Will. It's a tremendous race. I think it's shaping up to be something really exciting, and I wish I was out there. It's unusual for me to not be involved in a race. I usually don't go unless I can drive, but my alliance obviously is with Shell, so I had to decline, but the Mazda team's in good shape, and I think they'll be looking good at the end of the day.
Tell us about trying to do this job under these conditions.
Well, I'm not a great driver in the night, so I'm glad I'm not out there right at this minute, but it's very difficult because you get a lot of glare from all the lights. And
we're seeing plenty of that.
Yes, it's quite difficult to pick apexes of corners and things, so I think all the guys will be showing a certain amount of caution. But, you know, it's a long race and anything can happen.
I think it will too, most of it, most of anything.
Well, certainly last year there was plenty of action, and I think the guys at the moment will just be stroking along and just seeing what happens.
Into Caltech
move there, so.
Into Caltech's chase, nearly 6 kilometres completed at the 6.213 kilometres, 254 laps covered last year, 12 more than in the previous year, 21 laps an hour average, and the Honda NSX is motoring along pit lane, going out to join the race there, just about 1 lap behind. A miraculous effort by the TAFE team to repair that car, because the car was so resistant to their wanting to straighten it out. Come aboard this exclusive $200,000 two-seater, the Sonny Lotus, with Larry Perkins at the wheel. He's got Porsches either side of him. He's trying to put 2 of them behind him instead of 1 in front, 1 behind. He succeeded in that as he swoops across the top of the mountain. But John Bow, he probably could be going a lot harder.
Well, I think so, Will. I think Larry's one of the best operators in Australia, both as a driver and an engineer and a strategist. And I think the car's probably quick enough to be leading this race, but he's obviously got a plan. And I can tell by the way he's driving it that he's just stroking it along. He's very easy on the gear change. He's not punishing the brakes too much. And I wouldn't be at all surprised at the end of the day to see him in a very good position. It's a tremendous motor car, and I think it adds a lot of interest to the race to have something like this in it.
The night traffic continues, thick and dark and difficult to identify. And then sideways off Skyline, I'm not sure whether it's a Falcon or a Commodore, but it's one of Australia's family cars, and in a pile of bother because crunch. So car 42, that is. That's Darryl Dixon's, Graham Lusty's Falcon S-Pack, and just restarting it there. Castrol chase and a tremendous battle going on between the initial race leader, Greg Hansford, in the Mazda number 1, and now Peter Fitzgerald challenging him and hitting the lead on occasions in car number 5. Fitzgerald getting pretty cagey, I suspect, John Bowe, in trying to put the pressure on while Greg Hansford tries to be very sympathetic with the Mazda.
That's right. Well, it's actually John Smith, I think, in the car, but they are looking very good. They've got a good package there, and I think they'll be looking good at the end of the day.
Morning, Peter Brock.
Good morning.
Welcome back to Mount Panorama. Are you having a lovely time?
I am. I'm driving along here smelling the, it's not so much breakfast, smelling like rashers of bacon. I'm smelling diff oil and brakes and all sorts of things.
Isn't this all faintly ridiculous?
It is, mate. It is.
Peter, you've got a V8 Commodore in front of you, 2 places forward in outright. You're 9th, it's 7th. What's going on?
Well, he's in one of the Group A homologation cars.
Yep.
And so it's got a little bit bigger tyres and bits and pieces, but basically I'm just driving to what I think this car feels like it wants to do.
Just 1 hour and 20 seconds into the James Hardy 12 hour. The leading Mazda, car number 1 that was leading the race, has made its first pit stop, a very quick, efficient one indeed. But that puts Porsche number 4 into the lead. That's Peter Fitzgerald from John Smith in Porsche number 5 in 2nd place. In 3rd place is car number 18. That's the Lotus of Larry Perkins. In 4th place behind it is car number 7. That's the Mazda of Gary Walden, but it's now scheduled for a stop, of course. Then it's the Holden Commodore V8, the SS car, that's in 5th place. That's car 43 of Richard Wilson, Troy Nicholson. And in 6th place is car number 21, Gary Rogers, in the Subaru RS Turbo that's been very quiet but efficient so far.
Well, it's always a pleasure to come back here. Have a look at this. This was the first radio station I ever worked at over 20 years ago, and that's why it's a pleasure. Absolutely beautiful. That's Bathurst at dawn, one of the prettiest cities in Australia, without a doubt. And there we are now, live at the track. John Bowe's with me. Since that early race start, John, the 2 Porsches are out in front and just cruising along.
Looks fairly ominous, doesn't it? They are certainly a very good race package, but the Lotus is in a very strong position, as are the Mazdas, so it really is developing into a super battle at the front, and I think it'll happen all day.
There's our leader, that's the 968. There's 2 of them in the lead, cars 4 and 5, at the moment followed by the Lotus Esprit, and then the 2 Mazda RX-7s. Now, we should explain, these Porsches aren't going to have to make as many pit stops as the others, which could be an advantage towards the end. Mine, too, we've got a hell of a long way to go.
Well, certainly 12 hours is a long race, but I think the Porsches are looking at 1 hour and 3/4 between fuel stops, which is 3/4 of an hour longer than the Mazda. The Lotus is an unknown quantity. I think the Porsche is the stronger of the packages because it's a made-for-racing type car. But in 12 hours, lots of things happen and usually do.
Something we'll discuss through the day, but I'll get some early thoughts from you. There's some controversy that the Porsches and the Lotus shouldn't be there because they're too expensive. We're talking about $200,000 motor cars. And I guess even the Honda you can throw into that at 170. But they are production cars.
Well, they are. I mean, it depends whether I have a Mazda hat on or a motor enthusiast hat on and how I answer that question. But I think the fact is you can actually buy them in Australia. You can go to a Porsche dealer and buy a 968 CS. So I guess because of that, it's fair and above board. The Lotus, I think, is the same. You can go to a Lotus dealer, although there aren't many of them. From an enthusiast point of view, I think it adds to the race. I think the promoter has to be very careful, though, about what he does allow in, because if you allow manufacturers to have homologation specialists, then it'll discourage other manufacturers. So, you know, it's a fine line to walk.
Okay, well, it's good to have you sitting next to me because it means I learn a lot about motor racing over the next few hours. We'll take a break from Mount Panorama and come back with more live action. You're watching the James Hardy 12-hour endurance race. Welcome welcome back. You know, one of the many events associated with the James Hardy 12 Hour this year is a fantastic black tie dinner featuring a fashion parade of Richard Cook originals modelled by Miss Universe Australia for 1992, Bonnie Delphos, and also 5 other entrants in the Miss Universe Australia quest, looking absolutely sensational. The girls, I can tell you, they're having a good time too. The Mitchell College of Advanced Education is here now. It's Mitchell University now, isn't it, I think? There's a lot of young people around. The parade was launched in the competition to find the Paul Mitchell Miss Universe Australia 1993. And there's our leading car, the Porsche 968. In fact, both of them, both the 968. John Bauer leading at this stage of the race. And we do have a very long time to go. They're looking terrific. There's the Lotus Esprit. Now, John Bauer.
He looks like he's in trouble, Tim. He's at the top of the mountain and he's going very slowly, so there's obviously some problem, but he may be out of fuel or something, because it's. I don't think he's made a stop yet. And
oh, gee, that'd be a bad
well, yeah. It's almost due for a fuel stop, so
there he is, just crawling down the mountain. So there's obviously something wrong with the Lotus Esprit. Larry Perkins at the wheel. So he's got a problem. Now, we said at the head of the program, this is a 12-hour endurance race, and any number of things, John, can go wrong.
Well, always the unknown is the frightening part, and as we found out last year in the Mazda team, the cars go perfectly all week, and then you have small problems, but the car's still running, so if he can get it back to the pits, he's got a chance, because you can lose quite a considerable amount of time in this race and still pick it up, because nothing ever goes to plan.
It looks like he just could be nursing it down there for some reason. Huh?
Yeah, well, it's not smoking, it all looks intact, so I wouldn't like to put the mockers on him, but it may be out of fuel. Wouldn't be the first time it's happened.
Wouldn't you hate yourself if you did that?
Well, the calculations are all done during the day, you know, and you get very dense cold air this morning, and I guess the turbo cars particularly make more horsepower, so if they make more horsepower, they use more fuel.
That looked like Brocky going through there, is it? That the...
Yeah,
that's Peter.
Brocky, the master of the mountain. He's flinging that car around. It must remind him of the old Monaro days, I reckon.
He's been round here a few times, hasn't he?
He certainly has.
All right, now we're in the Lotus now, in the car cab in the Lotus with Larry Perkins, and he's going very slowly.
He is, but it's still running, so I hope they can get it, whatever's wrong with it, get it organised.
All right, well, as we leave you from here, let's cross over to Will Hagan, who may have some idea what's wrong with the Lotus. Will Hagan, good morning to you.
Good morning, Tim. And what a sad sight for the car that was in 3rd place, has already dropped to 5th. While that was happening, at the other end of the circuit, Porsche number 5 in 2nd place had made a pit stop and got out again quickly as Larry Perkins cruises in this $200,000 Lotus Esprit Turbo S4 for the attention of his pit crew, and then just gets a little bit of a spurt on, so I think it's almost certainly fuel. Here yesterday is Doug Chivers, who years ago pushed an XU1 Tirana up pit lane there to where Harry Firth's Holden dealer team was at that stage, just down there where the Mazda pit is. But the Lotus under attention. Larry going to stay in the car, so to do a double stint, hour and a half for him. It shouldn't have been an hour 35 as it was, apparently. No other problem being attended to. So, Ken Douglas, is that what it looks like?
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, I've got to say, Will. When Larry was coming into the pits, he was actually turning the ignition key on and off to suggest that he wanted to run the engine just a little bit to get him a bit of speed, but he was turning it off as quick as he could. But the crew's not doing any work on the car in terms of mechanical work to the engine or anything, so I'm at a loss at this stage, I've got to say.
At the same time as all that was happening too, and that Porsche 5 pitted and dropped to 3rd place, letting Mazda 1 up to 2nd place. And here are brakes that are supposed to go a long way, getting some pads already, which the Mazdas, for instance, haven't had when they did their first pit stop at 55 minutes. But at the same time, the leading MR2 in the sports car class, Juan Fangio 2 Peter McKay, made its pit stop. So about an hour and a half, it seems, for Porsche, Lotus, MR2s. And there's Murray Carter in that Nissan Pulsar Triple S number 12, leading Class B and 15th outright. And what a rocket it is. Damon Beck, Brian Wilshire. And, well, it is. It's just a sense. And Ken Douglas has felt its power and speed in a Falcon and been unable to peg it back on Mountain Straight. Storms up the mountain pretty well too. And there's the MR2 that made that pit stop just a moment ago. Has dropped now to 14th place and to 3rd in the S-Class behind the MR2 number 55 that now leads it. Stephen Shedden, Scott Bagwana and Jason Bagwana. They are 2 places forward. So the MR2's in 12th, 13th and 14th place outright. That being the 14th outright, 3rd in class.
Murray Carter, you can see right behind the MR2 at the moment. He's trying to peg it back. Ooh, that was a little bit of a moment there.
Isn't it indeed? And
Murray's actually, if Murray can catch the MR2 and pass it, it will be a pass for position. So while Murray probably doesn't know that, he knows that there's a car in front of him that he doesn't want in front of him. So he'll be catching him, definitely.
Interesting too that the Class A battle has been not only raging, but in fact their cars have been moving forward. They've gained almost 10 places. The leading car in Class A is now 25th outright. So there's been plenty of disasters early on in the race. Dick Johnson and his son Stephen in car number 17. And they languish at the tail end of the field after doing only 1 lap, along with car number 59, which was indeed a scratching Ian Thompson, Phil Showers, Lou Renato in a Mitsubishi Lancer GSR, and car 23, only 1 lap completed, Ray Ryan, Harry Dutton, Jim Runciman in Western Australian Mitsubishi Lancer GSR, also out of piston trouble. They've just had a wretched time. 2 clutches, electronic control unit problem, as well as blowing the truck up on the way here from the west.
Just looking in the pit lane at this stage, we notice that the Lotus is still sitting there, but just as car 38, the Queensland Falcon, goes past.
Yes, that car was the one that spun and collected John Burke in the Supra, and that's car number 39, Christopher Sexton, Rodney Dawson, Wayne Osborne, that's travelling pretty slowly. So he's got a tortuous lap coming, trying to get up the mountain because he's in pit lane at the moment.
Yes, and it's been strange. That car's been running quickly and then slowly, periodically, so we're not quite sure what the problem with that one is, but he has a very long race ahead of him if he's going to keep going at that pace, and he's not going to do too many laps either.
Oh, well, upside down, and Corolla?
Lancer? Yeah, it's a bit hard to recognise from this angle, isn't it? It might be Tom Watkinson in the Corolla, possibly.
But fire okay, and driver okay, and John Smales also.
4 minutes and 30 seconds the Lotus has now been in the pits, and Jim Smith, the owner of the team Lotus, what's going on?
Well, we have a jam pad in the right-hand rear caliper, pure and simple, nothing else. That's not much you can do about it. Just got to get it out and get it fixed.
Car ran out of fuel on the way down Mountain Straight?
Yes, it did actually. He did a stumble on the pump, and but it's always got another lap in it after it stumbles. But I don't know. I can't give you a definite answer on that.
Doesn't always have another lap in it after it stumbles, I suspect, and that stumble also of the Corolla that's upside down. So, car 2 here, Juan Fangio II, the nephew of the great Juan Manuel Fangio, the Argentinian who started his Grand Prix career when he was 39 years of age, won 5 World Championships, 25 Grand Prix out of 51 starts. But the amazing thing that a lot of people don't notice is that in his entire Grand Prix career, he started from the front row of the grid. Out of 51 races, he was in the front row 48 times. It was astonishing. And his nephew hasn't by any means disgraced the name. He doesn't have that level of brilliance, which many say was the greatest ever. But he certainly has won the Sebring 12 Hour on a couple of occasions, American IMSA champion, and there's a busy season coming up there. And
yes, that is Tom Watkinson. Tom looks reasonably nonplussed about it, I've got to say, but I guess it pays to adopt a philosophical outlook when you're in that situation. There ain't a lot you can do about it. It's hard to see where on the track that is. It looks like it might be on the exit of McPhillamy. Yes, in fact, it is the exit to McPhillamy. The only suggestion to that would be that he may have run wide at McPhillamy. Of course, there's about half an acre of sand there. Once you're in it, you're over. And there's no soft landings.
And that's the situation at this stage. Overall, in the James Hardy 12 hour after an hour and 3/4.
Well, the rich rural landscape surrounding Bathurst is not always as peaceful and serene as it may seem most of the time. Yes, at Easter each year, the silence is completely shattered by the roar of the V8s and the scream of those turbochargers. The James Hardy 12-hour race is on again. And each year, the motor industry's biggest names come to Bathurst to do battle and find out which production car is the most reliable. And the poor old sheep get very nervous. The birds take flight because there's a lot of noise going around this mountain. But it's very exciting noise, and when we talk about production cars being the most reliable, John, now we're finding out a bit about reliability already, and not even 2 hours into the race.
Well, it's always like that, Tim. They test all week, nothing goes wrong, and as soon as you get into the race, the smallest things cause the biggest problems, and we've seen lots of cars have little stumbles so far, but there's a long way to go. You can always get back up again.
All right. There's our leader in Class D as we cross back to Will Hagan and Ken Douglas.
Yes, it's been a quiet effort by this car. It qualified 13th outright, but bolted up into the top 10 in a very solid position in the top 10 early on, Ken Douglas. It's a handy tool as well, though, the SS version of the V8 Commodore.
It's a beautiful looking car as well. There's a bit of a plus and minus with it. By taking this car with extra fiberglass over the standard V8 Commodore version, you get a little bit of extra weight, but you get a bit of extra aerodynamics. The Brock and Scott team have decided to go for the more basic, lighter weight version, and the Nicholson team have gone for this slightly heavier but much more efficient aerodynamic package. In fact, they've just dropped back from Class Lead.
Yes. And Richard Wilson, good morning. Good morning, Will. What are you doing letting Peter Brock forward in front of you in a fairly standard V8?
Well, I haven't got a lot of brake pedal at the moment. And by going, she's starting to cut out a bit.
I can see the heat haze coming out of the left front wheel right now, so it's not pulling up too well. Can you hear me, Richard?
Yes, I can hear you, Will.
Not pulling up too well?
Well, I haven't got a lot of pedal. It's under steering more than I like, but apart from that, she's a joy.
Does that mean that you're having to use the engine a bit to help you stop?
Yeah, I have to use the engine a fair bit, but the trouble is, even going up the hill, she just feels like she's lifting me up a little bit.
You got a lovely start in the race. You jumped into the top 10 very aggressively. Pleased with that?
It's a long day. We'll have to do it at the end for sure.
All right, got a good team to back you up in the pits?
We've got probably what I would say the best team. We've got such a bunch of good blokes that be working their legs out. Absolutely.
And when are you due in?
I came out at 6:45. We ran it for an hour and a half.
So you're going to put up with this brake pedal for the rest of this stint, eh?
Yeah, next season will come in. We've got new power in, new sort of tyres, and Darren Craig will go out with the first car.
All right, good luck to you. We'll get back to you later. Thanks, Richard.
Well, I think if they've got brake problems at this stage of the event, it doesn't augur well for the remainder. In fact, you can see there he's trying to pass a six-cylinder Commodore on the outside, but even though the car's clearly quicker, without good brakes, you just can't go charging in there. You rely on
Let's watch it down through here, Ken Douglas, because this is an area where you need stoppers.
Well, just about here, he'll be going back through all the gears he can, putting the handbrake on, opening the doors and doing everything to try and slow it down. There's not much else you can do.
Slews sideways a little bit there, and Forest Elbow's critical. Gets really steep here. But we go back up, and in leading Class A is car 30. Now, this is David Sala, John Faulkner, Jeff Full, Toyota Corolla that qualified in 41st grid position. And as ever, the little cars will be an enormous battle. The car behind them, a fair way behind them at this stage, but is the Suzuki Swift GTI of Mark Brame, Henry Draper. Now, they qualified, for instance, in 32nd grid position, so they've got more evenness over their drivers, but both of these cars are shot up in the overall. Believe it or not, this little Corolla is lying in 25th place, 24th place outright. Ken Douglas, that's remarkable. It's a very different technique to driving these cars to driving the bigger ones.
As you can just see there, half the technique involves having your arm out the window all the time, indicating faster cars to go past. At this stage, they'll be trying very much to get as much of a gap as they can on the Suzuki.
They flog them to the maximum all day, and this is the situation in the James Hardy 12-hour with just over an hour 50 gone. This is the overall. Porsche from Mazda now, second and third. Porsche fourth. And that Honda NSX, after a very quick pit stop, in fifth place at this stage. A great race on our hands.
Welcome back to Bathurst. These are the hardest working guys here, I'm here to tell you. The pit stop crews, they go fast and furious. The cars come in and it's almost a competition between them to see how quickly they can get everything done. Refueling, pads, whatever it is they need to do, it's all done with a minimum of fuss, and it's done fast. Now, they work hard, those fellas. They really do. All right, as we cross back to Will Hagan, there's the dog bone, and I tell you what, after missing the start altogether, Will, this thing is starting to fly.
Yes, it is. It's been a tremendous bit of progress through the field. It was dead motherless last, and it rapidly came up to 9th and then shot up to 6th. Is now in 5th place outright. It's been keeping fairly good pace with that Mazda, and what a credit to the team, but also a credit to the TAFE crew, because that car had the left rear wheel lying horizontal to the track bent through 90 degrees. It had the right front damaged and the left front destroyed. They got into the car and started to straighten it, and instead of one hydraulic press on it on one end and one on the other, 10 tons capacity on each that they used, for instance, to straighten John Burke's Supra, car number 15, they had 3 on the left front, 30 tons hanging off the car. Not only wouldn't it come out the last 6 millimetres that they needed to get it up to correct dimension, but they could open and close the doors at the same time. It wasn't distending the body at all. It is so stiff and so strong. One of the crews there said, it's stronger than any Benz I've repaired previously, and the other crews said it's stronger than any seam-welded Group A, Group A anything that they'd had in the TAFE Bay. An amazing car. In fact, Ross Palmer's so impressed, the Palmer Tube Mills boss and owner, that he works a lot in America. He's going to trade his Benz in and get one of these, a Honda Acura, as it is over there. And after all, at 55,000 US dollars, it's not a bad sort of a sniff by comparison with 167 that it costs in Oz dollars. And leading the race now is car number 1 from the race leader 4 that pitted just a moment ago, did a very quick 34-second stop. Third place is Mazda, so it's Mazda from Porsche, from Mazda from Porsche, from the Dogbone Honda, and then car 3, the Nissan Skyline GTR, and car 6 that you're watching there. Peter Brock, Tony Scott, 7th place outright, leading Class D in that fairly standard V8 Commodore by comparison with car 43, that's 2 places further back outright. 9th place outright, that is the SS car, the homologation car that forms their Group A basis. So, doing a good job, Ken Douglas, but an interesting battle we expect between the V8s in Class D, of which there are only 3, 2 Holdens and a Falcon, and the 6-cylinder Commodores and Falcons, of which there's quite a brace.
In fact, 2 6-cylinder Falcons qualified ahead of the V8 Commodores for this race, which would be the last thing you would have expected. But I think it's just the Falcons around here with a good spread of torque and excellent gearing mean that on this track they're particularly well suited. Obviously, the guys that they have driving that Commodore, Peter Brock and Tony Scott, they're as good as you get, so there's no deficiency in that department.
Toyota Supra in front of them fell way, way back after 2 pit stops at about 55 minutes and again at 1:05, and they dropped to 46th place outright, trying now to work their way forward. But Peter Brock doing a good job in Commodore there. He just loves this mountain track, 6.213 kilometres around. Last year, the race-winning distance, 254 laps. The previous year, 242, so it was 12 laps extra last year. And in fact, last year's average was 21 laps an hour. They did 22 in the first hour. Peter Brock, how's the pace? Is it in line with your strategy?
Oh, actually, we're going faster than we qualified.
Why?
Well, we didn't actually have a real go at qualifying, and I figured that out there in traffic, getting the swing of things, you'd end up doing that.
It wasn't because you wanted to see off the six-cylinder Falcon that hit you, was it? Wasn't anything to do with that? Peter, it wasn't anything to do with having to see off that six-cylinder Falcon that so rudely saw you off in qualifying, was it?
Yeah, actually it was, as a matter of fact. Well, I thought about it. I thought this big Commodore's got to be able to beat a six-pack.
Yeah, well, Peter, we've got an old rival of yours sitting in the studio up here.
Moffat or someone? Who is it?
No, it's Dick Johnson. He hasn't had as much luck as you. Good morning, Dick Johnson.
Good morning, Will.
Tell us your problems and talk to Brocky.
Well, actually, it's just the fact that I think the biggest problem we had is that the car went in behind the pit wall and we're not allowed to bring it back out again. But the initial problem was a turbo failure because what actually happened is with the restrictions we have on the exhaust now and the cold air in the morning, it just gets the pyrometer temperature up too high and it broke an exhaust wheel off.
So was that because the car wasn't warmed up properly or what?
No, not at all, Will. It's just the fact that the very cool, dense air makes the turbo work an awful lot harder, and with a very small exhaust like we have to run in the turbo cars now, it allowed the exhaust temperature to go too high, and the shaft broke on the turbo shaft.
Peter Brock, I suppose you sympathise enormously with young Dick.
Well, actually, I know what it was like on that to break down early in the race. I mean, I did it in the October race, and it really gives you a very flat feeling. And it's just like a commiseration to Dick that he can't get the car back out on the track to, you know, just to sort of give it a bit of a whirl around and give young Steve a drive, etc.
You don't feel like giving him a spare spot in your car, letting him do a stint, do you?
Dickie can come down and have a drive.
Oh, mate,
no problem.
Mate, I can hardly wait.
Yeah. But you see this, she's a ball of fire, this machine, Dick.
I can see that.
Well, it was 8 degrees colder up at the top of the mountain this morning than it was down the bottom, and in the studio there with Dick Johnson, Tim Webster. Very disappointed Dick, I imagine, Tim.
Yes, indeed, Will, and I can tell Peter Brock that Dick isn't exactly rushing out of his chair to get down there to get in the car. But I've also got Stephen Johnson with me too, Dick's son, and it's very disappointing for you, Stephen. You're looking forward to going out there, I guess.
Yeah, it was. I had a ball at practice, and I'm liking the track already. So I hope I can come back here and have a race sometime.
Have another run round. Tell me about this rule, Dick. You've sort of glossed over it a bit there. You took the car where and weren't allowed to bring it back?
Well, obviously, I was quite unaware of it, but once you take the car behind the pit wall, you're not allowed to re-enter the racetrack again, and that's what happened. The car went behind the pit wall so we could repair it to give the two young guys a go, and now, because the rules are rules, we're not allowed back on the racetrack again.
Awfully long way to come for nothing.
It certainly is, and it's very disappointing, you know, for all the people that are involved, and especially the guys that they work very hard to get the car where it is, and it was only in the last couple of days that it started running properly, and you know, for the Hardy Bondor people that put all the effort into it,
yeah,
disappointing.
We've got our lead car. We've got one of the RX-7s in the pits there. Just before I let you go, Dick, your opinion about this. I know Brocky's got a pretty strong opinion on it, on the Lotus and the two Porsches being in this production car race. They are production cars theoretically, I guess.
Yeah, they're very limited production car, of course, but my belief is if this race becomes a very big event throughout the world, which is very likely,
sure.
The thing is that we're going to have manufacturers battling and building one-off type motor cars to win the event, and I think that sort of loses some of the context of what it's all about.
All right, thanks for coming up and joining us.
Thanks, Tim.
Pretty disappointing day for you. Thanks, Stephen. I hope you get a chance to get out there and rip around again.
Thanks.
Dick and Stephen Johnson. We'll take a break from Mount Panorama. You're watching the James Hardy 12-hour production car endurance race.
We are an Australian product. We're running a car which is very readily recognisable by the general public. and we're running against a lot of supercars, some of which cost up to $250,000. The race engine, well, as you can see, it's the ubiquitous Holden V8, been around for a long time. You know, compared to, say, the V6 or the little Peugeot last year, certainly this car's got some speed down the straight. It probably lacks a little bit of the nimbleness of, say, the Lotus or the Mazda or the Porsche or what have you, but it'll still give a surprisingly good account for itself. And I'd say to any of the race fans out there, have a look on TV and just notice how the local product still hangs in there down through the Dipper and McPhillippi Park and all those twisty bits. I mean, the Bathurst track is one of the greatest circuits in the world, and certainly to drive the local product at Bathurst is, you know, a very satisfying experience. It's one of those challenges you can't sort of turn your back on.
Well, it's doing a great job. He's in 7th place outright. By comparison with this car, the MR2 that's leading the sports car class, it's 11th outright. Lovely little car, $40,000, a specialised mid-engine Toyota, specialist two-seater, but a very pretty little car for a production sports car. A very satisfying one to drive too, and one that seesawed the lead in the sports car class. There are 4 MR2s and 1 Honda CRX, the old model CRX, and that did get into the lead at one stage, but the MR2's back into the lead, so it's 11th outright. The CRX Honda, car number 48, George Santana, John Pollard, is in 12th place outright. But they flogged these MR2s hard all day, a little bit like the cars in Class A, the Corollas and Suzuki Swifts, which they just do not spare 1 inch at any time. Those that are trying to win the class certainly don't. The MR2 is driven very similarly. Peter McKay's instruction when getting into car 2 the other day from the team boss was drive it like it's a sprint, hammer the brakes, rev the engine up to 7,500 all day, and throw it at the corners as hard as you possibly can. Nice steering car, Ken Douglas, but you have to be very sensitive with it.
They're an absolute joy to drive these cars. As Will just said, you can just murder them all day. There's not one weak point on the car. It's nice and light, it's nice and nimble. Not too much power on it, so you just drive it, which is compared to some of the other cars which have to be nursed, it's a real bonus if you're one of the drivers.
It's going remarkably well. In 11th place outright, when you think about it, it's quite a heavy car. It's well over 1,300 kilos. And Neil Rickbates doing a good job in the car. He's sharing the car with Juan Manuel Fangio II and Peter McKay, and Rick was very close to Fangio's times in qualifying. He's the twin of Neil Bates, the Toyota's rally star. Rick's the more specialised road race driver. The funny thing is that Neil Bates has entered this car, but is actually himself in another vehicle. So he's got his brother driving along with Juan Fangio, and look how quickly he turns it in, Ken Douglas. He just doesn't ease it into a corner. He just demands it go. Sudden thrust of the arms, and the car responds and works the way he wants it to.
You don't need to with that car. You don't need to ease it in. Because the car is so well set up, so well built, you can just drive it on its limit. So the subtleties just go away by and large.
So this race of seesawing fortunes already, fascinating one, and the battle in that class will be a beauty, and so too will the outright battle. And car 7 now hits the lead, I think for the first time, Gary Walden, that he's sharing with Alan Jones, and he leads Porsche number 4 in 2nd place, Peter Fitzgerald, Brett Peters, Nicholas Lloyd-Wheeler. 3rd place is a Mazda number 1, that's Charlie O'Brien, Greg Hansford, Terry Lewis, but this is the car that's got the form on the board at the moment. 49 laps completed, 2 hours and 13 minutes of racing done in a race that's to run 12 hours in glorious weather here on Mount Panorama. It's really a delightful day now that the sun has come through and everything's lifted. In 4th place is car number 5, John Smith, Kevin Waldock, Jeff Morgan in the 2nd of the Porsches. The Honda NSX is in 5th place, and that Lotus, not travelling quickly at all, is in a disappointing, it was 37th place, it's now 34th. Over in the studio, Tim Webster, good morning. How are you going, Tim?
Well, we're going just fine over here in our little room. And
oh, dear. I've been up for too long.
Well, talk to me again about 4:30.
Exactly.
And then I'll let you know how we're going then. But the way they stand at the moment, we've got Mazda, Porsche, then the Honda, then the Nissan, and then Brocky in his Commodore, who is just going superbly well. But then again, you'd expect the king of the mountain to do that. All right, we'll be back here for updates at 9 o'clock, then again at 10, then again at 11 o'clock, and then, of course, from midday, we're here for 5 consecutive hours to bring you the rest of this race, which is, of course, the James Hardy 12-hour endurance race for production cars. We'll see you back here in a couple of hours.
James Hardy Industries, in association with Palmer Tube Mills, Bridgestone, that's confidence, Castrol Liquid Engineering, Telecom Mobile Net, Australia's own, Windsor Smith Boots, and BP Visco, hope you are enjoying the James Hardy 12-hour.
Welcome back, everyone, to Mount Panorama at Bathurst, where a good deal has happened in the 2 hours since we were last with you. In fact, we've been under the instructions of the pace car for quite a few laps after Jane Taylor lost the Citroen right up on the top of Forest Elbow and rolled it down the elbow quite a good way. So the pace car was out for a while. They've in fact only just started racing again, and our lead car is still the Porsche, one of the Porsches, driven by Fitzgerald Peters and Nicholas Ludweiler in the car at the moment, followed by the Mazda, 2 Mazdas, and then the other Porsche. So we've got Porsche, Mazda, Porsche, then the Honda NSX with Wayne Gardner, I think, still in the car, followed by the Skyline, and then on down the field. And Will Hagan, it's been an eventful couple of hours.
It's a very eventful moment at this stage because both the Lotus there, but also the Porsche, I think, has a problem, and we've seen the Mazda go into the lead. But this was the problem with this exotic Lotus on pole position. Never really got going, better than 3rd place, and had problems, fell to 37th place, is now 23rd, and that's Tom Watkinson from the Corolla. Okay, but the car out. But Wayne, how are you going? Nice to be back in the car?
Yeah, particularly the last way I left off in the thing. Yeah, it's good. It's running well. It's a little bit hot in here. I guess they didn't connect up the cooling system properly, and I've got the window up to try and hear you properly, but yeah, the car's running fine apart from a little hot.
Well, your times are pretty hot, Wayne. Your times are hot.
Yeah.
I had you on a 37.3, then a 38.2, and that last one you've just done was a 36.3.
Yeah.
And you're, in fact, picking up ground on the race leader, Porsche number 4.
Oh, yeah.
You're getting away from him. He's about 25 seconds behind you. In fact, the gap now is 28.4. You've picked up 3.6 seconds on that last lap on the leader.
Oh, really? That's good news.
Yeah.
Considering the handicap we had at the start.
A nasty crash for the Peter McLeod entered Citroen number 14. Chris Wiles, Chris Clearahan and Jane Taylor out of control for a fairly long way at Forest Elbow and then ending up lying on its side, as you can see. And that's brought out the pace car situation.
Well, as you rejoin us, we have a new leader for the time being. Mind you, it seesaws a good deal in this 12 hours. There it is, the Jones & Walden Mazda RX-7, and it's leading the Porsche at the moment. So we've got Mazda, Porsche, and then Wayne Gardner in the Honda. And Will Hagan, this is very interesting racing. I'm having a very good time, I can tell you.
This is a real race. Have a look at the way this car's being used. I don't think we've seen anything till now being used quite as quickly, quite as hard as car number 7 is now going. He managed to make a pit stop during that pace car period, which was 25 minutes. It was quite a long time. Very appropriately used, though, because it was a dangerous situation and a lot of dirt and stuff on the track. But this is now an opportunity for Mazda to crack back at Porsche to put on some pressure on Nicholas Moitwheeler in car 4, who's fallen to 2nd.
All right, we've gone through 92 laps so far. Our lead cars have at least. So let's take you through our leaderboards through all classes. Class A to position Suzuki Swift, and then followed by a couple of Corollas, then another Swift and another Corolla. In Class B, the TX3 Laser, Nissan Pulsar Triple S, doing very well, 2 of them in fact, then an Astina Mazda and a Citroen. The X16 Class C positions, and 2 Porsches, of course, and then the Honda NSX, and as you heard Will say, Wayne Gardner's been flying in that Honda, then a couple of Falcons. And a Class D, the Holden Commodore, 2 of them, Peter Brock's being the second of, and we'll have to find out about Peter Brock. He was a lot higher up than that when we left you. He dropped quite a few places. And the S-Class, the sports car class, the 2 Toyota MR2s, Fangio is going very well. In fact, he's 8th overall, as well as leading his own class. Then the turbos, of course, the 2 Mazda RX-7s, car number 7 being our lead car. Then the Nissan GTR, Mitsubishi Lancer going very well, and the Subaru RS as well. But there is our lead car, the Mazda RX-7 at this point in time. We have it Mazda, we have it Porsche, Mazda, Porsche, and then the Honda. Well, this really is interesting racing. We've had a lot happen. That Lotus has been in trouble all the way through. And there is our update. We'll be back with you in 1 hour. Bathurst and Mount Panorama, the 12-hour. We've got a lot to cover in this little 8-minute update. So let's go straight down to the pits. John Smales has Porsche 968 driver Peter Fitzgerald with him.
And Peter is one of the happiest men in the pits at the moment. Peter, the Mazdas are climbing all over you. You'd expect to be worried, but you don't seem to be.
No, everything's running according to plan at the moment. We're running at a sustained pace, and we knew the Mazdas would be slightly quicker, and we're just a long way to go yet.
Well, you're watching the view from inside Peter Fitzgerald's car right now. So let's now see what's happened in the last hour here at the James Hardy 12-hour.
Keith Carling, good afternoon, good morning at least. Will Hagan here in the commentary box.
G'day, Will. How you going?
I'm going well. How about that car?
That car's going like a little clock. That's fantastic, Will.
Is the problem?
All we've done is change 2 tyres, and the brake pad wear is negligible, so we're looking real good for the long haul.
Mark Brave, Will Hagan, how's the little Suzuki going?
It seems to be going well at the moment, Will, touch wood.
You've had a pretty busy time. Took you a long time to get into the class lead.
I think Henry said that time. I think he got a bit of a toe to do it. The car's going extremely well. They're a top little motor vehicle, and we've proven it before, and hopefully today it'll stay together.
I say you had a busy time trying to get past and to build a bit of a lead on that Corolla number 30, John Faulkner, Jeff Full. Have you seen him off now, though?
Oh, right, okay. Well, they're about a lap down then, I suppose.
No, same lap as you, mate. They're not far behind.
Are they?
Yeah.
I'm going to give me finger out then, eh?
Nicholas Leutwheeler, Will Hagan in the commentary box. How's the Porsche going?
The Porsche is doing very well, Will. I'm really amazed how easy we can hold the pace at 39s and 40s. Dropping times.
You've been losing ground to the leading Mazda number 7.
Yeah, because they're running at about 36s or 37s, and we're doing our planned 39s, 40s. So this is intended, yes.
Nicholas, you're used to the classic tracks in Europe. What do you think of Mount Panorama?
I gotta say that Mount Panorama is just one of the best tracks I've ever been to. I really compare it a little bit with the Nürburgring, you know, the old one?
Yeah.
And I gotta say, this is the Nürburgring of the Southern Hemisphere here.
It's real road racing, isn't it?
It's real road racing, really, I gotta say.
In just half an hour since the pace car went away, Gary Walden's Mazda has sprinted to an advantage of 40 seconds over the Porsche of Peter Fitzgerald and Nicholas Leutwheler. The race is turning very much into a tortoise and hare affair. These Mazdas are lapping at 2 minutes 34 seconds and going even faster. So that's 2 seconds under last year's lap record. This pit stop, sensationally quick for Walden, 26 seconds. The Porsches, however, have a 4 pit stop advantage in the 8 hours remaining in the James Hardy 12-hour, and that's a lot of time for the Mazda to make up.
Well, Gary Walden is ripping around the track at the moment, and his co-driver is sitting right next to me. Alan Jones, g'day.
G'day, Tim.
Climbing all over the Porsches, John Smales said.
Yeah, well, we have to. I mean, we're lapping sort of 35s relatively comfortably. We're not stretching the cars. We're not revving them as much as we could be. But we feel we probably have to do that to make up for the extra pit stop.
No problems?
No, so far, touch wood.
Yeah, long way to go yet, though.
It certainly is, yeah. I mean, I keep looking at the clock, and it feels like about midday, and it's only about 10 o'clock.
It seems to me like all the guys out there are having a tremendous time. I've seen a couple of great little dices. Is that what you do out there? Just have a little dice just to keep the interest up?
Well, no. I mean, here's my co-driver now, Gary Walden, who's doing a fabulous job. I mean, he's just so clean and smooth, and he's lapping very, very consistently and very fast. Yeah. The major problem with us is that a lot of the guys are having a lot of dices, and you come across a 4 or 6 car dice.
You come up behind.
Yeah, and you can't just sort of double guess and go through because, you know, like one rival is concentrating on passing the guy that's in front of him and he hasn't seen you and he could come over and hit you. So you really have to stay back and wait your turn and pick the gaps when they become available.
In a race this long, is concentration a problem?
Yes and no, but as I said before, the 3 or 4 cars having their own little race helps the concentration. You know, you really got to concentrate all the time, and you know, I'm talking to the guy in the pits and watching the revs and the temperatures, and you know, we're pushing the cars relatively hard, although we've got a bit up our sleeve for later on if we need to.
All right, have a good time when you get back in the car.
Thanks, Tim.
Just stay there for a second. There is your car number 7, the Mazda RX-7, and doing it great. Look at Gary Walden using all that roadway. He's having a fabulous time. Now, if we can pick up Juan Fangio's car, I think Peter McKay's in it at the moment. Will Hagan, if you can hear me, I drove one of these fabulous little MR2s up here from Sydney, courtesy of my mate Ian Mayer at Sydney City Toyota, and they're going great. I look at the leaderboard now, and the car is running 8th overall. We're still seeing the Mazda. I think we're just trying to pick up car 2. Here it comes.
It's one of an elite group of cars, Tim, that has a 100% finishing record. It's won its class the last 2 years. And I think I'm right in saying that none have dropped out in that time either. All the starters have been finishers. Suzuki actually heads that, and they've had 10 starters and 10 finishes over the 2 years, a 100% record over quite a number of cars. But this car's travelling pretty quickly, as you say. It's in 8th outright. It's bordered by, I was going to say 2 Falcons, but things have changed a little bit since I last looked.
Yeah.
But in the pits, the Lotus has got further problems. Car 18 has got up to 15th outright. It's been back as far as 37th. It's wandered about, been back out to 23rd, as I say, got back to 15th. No wonder. Fastest lap of the race, a new and outstanding lap record, faster than its qualifying time, 2 minutes 31.77. Now compare that with the best from the Mazdas, a 33.77 for car 7, a 35.07 for car 1, and the 2 Porsches lapping consistently, Tim, at around 36s.
All right, thank you. Well, let's have a quick look at our leaderboards in this update so that you're completely up to date with the race. Classes first. In the A, there's the Suzuki Swift still, followed by 1, 2, 3 Corollas and the other Swift. In B, the Nissan Pulsar SSS and a TX3, then the other Pulsar, Mazda and the Citroen BX16. In Class C, the Porsches, of course, both of them, then the Honda NSX. Wayne Gardner still in the car, I think, then the 2 Falcons. D-Class, 2 Commodores and the Falcon. In the S-Class, the MR2's going just terrific. Then the Honda CRX in the middle of the 2 of them, or the 4 of them, rather. And the turbos, the 2 Mazda RX-7s, of course. Then the Nissan GTR, the Mitsubishi. Overall, the Mazda RX-7, I can tell you, followed by the Porsche, the other Mazda, the other Porsche, and the Honda NSX. That hasn't changed for quite some time. And down past them is the Nissan GTR Skyline, and followed by a Commodore, no, Falcon rather, then the MR2, then another MR2. So that's the position here at Mount Panorama in Bathurst. And we'll be back with another update in 1 hour. See you then from Mount Panorama. To Mount Panorama at Bathurst for our last update before we rejoin you at midday, and then we go live right through. Now we're just about, in fact just over halfway through the race, and we've had some interesting developments in the last hour, let me tell you, not the least of which a horse on the track. I'll tell you about that later, but I've got Wayne Gardner with me. G'day, mate.
Hi, Tim.
You're really sending that Honda around there for a while.
Yeah, it's running well, and it looks, well, it doesn't look very good appearance-wise, but it seems to be straight and driving very well and reliable, not a problem there.
Just quickly, we had all sorts of problems. I mean, after you bent it, they put it back together, the tape guys, a bonnet got knocked off. I mean, it's a wonder you're out there.
Yeah, it's had its trouble in the last couple of days. You know, it all started when I was on a quick lap, and as you know, I put it into the wall.
Yeah.
And they couldn't straighten it out. The strength of the chassis is just too strong. And that's why it's been delayed, and apparently they finished, what, 2 or 3 minutes before the start of the race. I was still in bed at the time, because in fact I didn't think we were going to make it. And they phoned me, I phoned them up at about 6:30, and I said, well, what's happened? They said, no, it's going, and I surprised the hell out of me. I mean, the smash repair people did a great job.
Now, at one stage you were rounding up the Mazda.
Yeah, caught and passed a couple of them. In fact, I got down to low 34s, which is quicker than my qualifying.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's another second there, but my team has told me to, back off the car and nurse it a bit more, and it's got to last for 12 hours, not for 12 minutes.
You look like you have a lot of fun out there.
Oh, yeah, I'm actually enjoying myself.
Yeah.
The car's very hot inside because I don't think they connected up the heating properly, and I think it's just blowing a lot of hot air through the car. But apart from that, it's nice to drive, and it's a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us. Might catch up with you later in the afternoon.
Okay.
Wayne Gardner, Will Hagan, and as I mentioned, we've had a very eventful hour.
We have indeed, and he's not had nearly as wretched a time as Peter McLeod. One of his cars having rolled, another crashed, and this one burnt. And Peter Jansen, the driver at the time in a car that he was sharing with Peter McLeod and Peter Dane, but as ever, the captain from Melbourne was quite irrepressible.
When the brake lead snapped and the oars got on the wheel on the disc, and that's what set it on fire.
This is the 1 horsepower model, fairly obviously. Everything else out there's got a lot more power, but this is a really worrying situation. It's come out of a property on the run up the mountain, at the end of Mountain Straight on Griffin's Bend. And it's obviously calm, thank goodness. But dreadful situation. There's the pace car. I doubt that anywhere, anytime, anywhere in the world, a pace car has come out legitimately because there's been a horse adjacent to the racetrack. It would be lovely if it galloped over there.
Still under the pace car, the leading Mazda car 7. This will be a full brake change again. Now, the team has done a brake change in 1 minute and 15 seconds so far. Absolutely sensational. But they were upset about it because they thought they should be able to change 4 disc brakes on this car, hot disc brakes, in less than 1 minute. Can they do it? 49 seconds down so far. They're not going to make it, but gee, they're going to come awfully close.
After the second pace car period, again of about 25 minutes, the delicious Mazda MX-6 pace car about to pull back into the pits and the field to get underway again. And the order is car number 1, the Mazda, in the lead, but still 4 cars on the lead lap, and 2 of those took advantage of the pace car period, Porsche number 4 and Mazda number 7, as the car pulls away to go in and make pit stops at minimal expense in time. And those cars in 2nd and 3rd place are now out on the track again together. So there'll be a real race on, and here they are. That is 2nd place, and car 7 is 3rd place in the motor race. 126 laps completed, 27 as they go across the start-finish line, and the Mazda goes for a sprint. Boxes the Porsche in a little bit, but the Porsche, I think, was content to be boxed in. Not in a hurry, and as Peter Fitzgerald and Nicholas Lloyd-Wheeler have said, they're doing their own thing. A temporary problem for car number 7 as it went up the mountain there. The Porsche got back past it again. Must have been, if anything, a missed gear, I think. And if it was, it would have got a dreadful rev. But going again, so I can only conclude if it's not something really intermittent like fuel pickup or electrical, then it was a missed gear, but it went very slowly, very suddenly. Wayne Thompson, Will Hagan here.
How are you?
Oh, I'm all right, but you picked the toughest class of all to have a crack at. You're 7th in Class A in that car 29.
Yeah, it's a great little car.
Yeah, but it's a big battle in front of you.
Well, I think I got rid of some of that, actually, the fast ones after the pace car.
Have you had any problems?
No, we've actually lost 1st and 2nd gear in the car, which makes it a little slow for us coming out of the cutting. And it makes it a bit exciting. I've got to really try and keep the speed up around the corners because 3rd's my lowest gear.
Yes, well, you've got a real job to do because Suzuki has a perfect finishing record here. 10 finishes out of 10 starts, so don't, whatever you do, retire.
I'll keep trying.
Good on you. Thanks, Wayne Thompson.
Thank you very much.
The people in command in Class A doing an absolutely sensational job. Mark Brame and Henry Draper in car 56. They won the Winton 6-hour outright. They then took 7th in the more competitive and harder Sandown 6-hour earlier this year. And now, after being 3rd in Class A early on, they're leading it. And what's more, they're leading the Class B leader. They're doing a fantastic job. So leading Class B behind them, they're 20th outright. Brame and Draper and a fraction too wide there. And I think that's Henry Draper and car 24 immediately behind them. Now this is 2 places further back, although it's leading that class. They're on the same number of places, but 22nd overall, the Laser TX3. Tim, still plenty of racing and hard driving on the mountain.
There is indeed. We're just past the halfway mark, but as you say, many hours still to go. All right, folks, let's update you completely on all the classes. Class A, we've just been looking at the Suzuki Swift, then Corolla, another Swift and a Corolla. In Class B, the Laser TX3 Nissan Pulsar Triple S, and down to the Citroen. In Class C, the 2 Porsches, of course, who are running 3rd and 4th at the moment. Then the Honda NSX, which was really driven hard by Wayne Gardner. Indeed, at Commodore, Falcon and Commodore. In Class S, the S-Class is the 2 MR2, 3 MR2s now, down to the Honda CRX and another MR2. The turbos, the 2 RX-7s, naturally, then the Nissan GTR and the Mitsubishi Lancer. Overall, the 2 RX-7s in the lead now, 1 and 2, then the 2 Porsches, then the Honda NSX. Now, when we come back, folks, at midday, we're with you for 5 consecutive hours as we wind down the James Hardy 12-hour production car race. See you then.
They've come to the mountaintop that's called Mount Panorama. Australian motor racing history is enshrined here at Bathurst. It's where the princes and the battlers of production car racing have sweated out a famous history and a glorious past. And now, in its 3rd year, the James Hardy 12-hour is establishing a glorious future. Because this is the endurance race that captures the public imagination. From the manufacturer to the mountain, and from the showroom floor to the Big Dipper. The cars you see here today, you can buy tomorrow. This is real racing, real driving by the seat of your pants.
I'm pulling 5-4, Ross.
Oh, come on, probably should be passing the guy.
Oh, look, I'm all over him like a cheap suit. 155 clicks, bit of a brush of the brakes, 3rd gear. Get a bit of this in here, McLeod.
Oh, he's doing all right this time, Cropton.
Oh, come on, I've made 40 car links on the bike.
Hey, down the inside, give it a go.
Oh, he was all out of shape. The guy's getting frustrated. Not to mention me with you family and me here, bro.
A test of endurance and ultimately
Good afternoon. Welcome to the great Aussie motor racing mountain. This is Mount Panorama at Bathurst, about 200 k's northwest of Sydney. If you're joining us for the first time this afternoon, welcome to you, or welcome back if you've been with us through our updates throughout the day. This is the James Hardy 12-hour production race, and that's exactly what it is. We said in the intro, you can go out and buy these cars tomorrow. With me, Will Hagan and John Bow. You're not with me for long. You've got to go back to your other box in a minute. Good to see you.
Well, you say you can buy them tomorrow, and, you know, the range is from $18,000 to $200,000. Yeah. So there's the ordinary car, the really relevant car, as well as the sort of dream cars. So it's a lovely mix.
As our viewers join us, we've got the 2 Mazdas leading 1 and 2, and then the 2 Porsches. Would you have expected that, Will?
Yes, they were the ones that were race organised, that had a competitive package together. We didn't really know about the Nissan Skyline GTR, for instance. The Honda NSX, people hoped that it would be in there, and it probably would have been too, but of course for the problem the other day. So yeah, that's about the right mix, the expected mix.
John Bow, any surprises in there for you?
Well, I can't believe that after 7¼ hours of racing, it's still so close.
Yeah.
The Mazdas have got a slight lead, but they've got more stops to make. The Porsches are still trucking on. It's just unbelievable that after that long we've still got a very close motor race.
Perhaps we should tell our viewers, if they have just joined us, that this race started at 4:45 in the dark this morning. So 7¼ hours, that makes, what have we got, 4:45?
It's 7 hours, 18 3/4 minutes.
I knew I could rely on you there.
I've got to know.
All right, let's have a look at what it did look like this morning, early morning, off the grid, in the dark.
Things in the pits this morning are Juan Fangio's tyres, tyre warmers on them, Juan. Is that going to help you in the race?
Yeah, definitely, because it's very cold right now, and it will be very good help for the beginning of the race.
Alan Jones, when did you last get up this early?
Well, I don't think I'd even get up this early to go on holidays, to be honest with you.
What's the atmosphere like here in the...
Oh, it's great. I think it's all part of it. I mean, seeing the disc glowing bright red and being up this, I think it's great.
Alan Gross, you're not in your driver's suit. Don't want to drive in the dark?
Oh, it's all a bit early, isn't it, John?
For Wayne Gardner, the last 36 hours have been a nightmare. Friday evening, he crashed his $170,000 Honda.
Trying to grab pole position. I was on a hot lap and, you know, tried a bit too hard.
Ian Palmer, a courageous effort, quarter of an hour to go, and the car's still being built. How do you feel?
I feel really confident. They've done a fantastic job. It's a credit to everyone, especially Tony Warriner and the TAF crew. I'm very proud to be associated with it, and I still feel we'll do very well.
A sensational pole position time, 146 kilometres an hour, nearly 10 seconds faster than just 2 years ago. The leading Class C car there, the Honda NSX, of Ian Palmer, Wayne Gardner and Ross Palmer. And then further down, the leading Class D car is the Holden Commodore V8. Tony Scott, Peter Brock, Wayne Park, 12th grid position. 17th grid position brings us up to the leading S sports car class car. That's the MR2, heading a real bunch of them. They're very close together too in the leading Class B car. Murray Carter, 19th grid position in that Pulsar Triple S. Further down, a tremendous battle looking imminent in the Class A, 30th, 31st and 32nd grid position. A Toyota Corolla lays a TX3 and Suzuki GTI separated by just 0.15 of a second. Then running through the field further, a number of those smaller class cars, but also some of the slower cars from the bigger classes like that Holden Commodore, the Ford Falcon there, a brace of Corollas to take on the Suzuki Swift GTIs, and perhaps a late scratching down at the end of the field in 54th grid position, just one car short of capacity, but possibly a late scratching for car 59. Fifth row of the grid, see Subaru Turbo RS and Ford Falcon XR6 away. And a great start for the two Mazdas, a slow start for the Lotus. But from the row one into the lead goes Charlie O'Brien, supported well by Gary Walden from the second row. Larry Perkins took a little while to get the Lotus going. Should get going as he storms up the hill. Troubles too early on, and from pit lane for car number 39, the Falcon that was damaged, Christopher Sexton. And now the amazing sight on Mountain Straight. That's the sight that drivers see as they wend their way up the mountain with, and that's the sight behind in the rear vision mirror. And they have some 2.5 hours of that sunrise due at 6:20, but of course the light will be filtering through before then. And good morning and welcome to John Bow. John, nice to have you here, but disappointing no doubt that recent sponsorship by BP kept you out of the Mazda team this year.
Yes, it is, Will. It's a tremendous race. I think it's shaping up to be something really exciting, and I wish I was out there. It's unusual for me to not be involved in a race. I usually don't go unless I can drive, but my alliance obviously is with Shell, so I had to decline, but the Mazda team's in good shape, and I think they'll be looking good at the end of the day.
Tell us about trying to do this job under these conditions.
Well, I'm not a great driver in the night, so I'm glad I'm not out there right at this minute, but it's very difficult because you get a lot of glare
from all the lights. And
we're seeing plenty of that.
Yes, it's quite difficult to pick apexes and corners and things, so I think all the guys will be showing a certain amount of caution. But, you know, it's a long race and anything can happen.
I think it will too, most of it. Most of anything.
Well, certainly last year there was plenty of action, and I think the guys at the moment will just be stroking along and just seeing what happens. I think there's a passing move there, so...
Into Caltech's chase, nearly 6 kilometres completed at the 6.213 kilometres, 254 laps covered last year, 12 more than in the previous year, 21 laps an hour average, and the Honda NSX is motoring along pit lane, going out to join the race there, just about 1 lap behind. A miraculous effort by the TAFE team to repair that car, because the car was so resistant to their wanting to straighten it out. Come aboard this exclusive $200,000 two-seater, the Sonny Lotus, with Larry Perkins at the wheel. He's got Porsches either side of him. He's trying to put 2 of them behind him instead of 1 in front, 1 behind it. He succeeded in that as he swoops across the top of the mountain. But John Bowe, he probably could be going a lot harder.
Well, I think so, Will. I think Larry's one of the best operators in Australia, both as a driver and an engineer and a strategist. I think the car's probably quick enough to be leading this race, but he's obviously got a plan, and I can tell by the way he's driving it that he's just stroking it along. He's very easy on the gear change. He's not punishing the brakes too much, and I wouldn't be at all surprised at the end of the day to see him in a very good position. It's a tremendous motor car, and I think it adds a lot of interest to the race to have something like this in it.
The night traffic continues, thick and dark and difficult to identify, and then sideways off Skyline. I'm not sure whether it's a Falcon or a Commodore, but it's one of Australia's family cars, and in a pile of bother because crunch. So car 42, that is, that's Darryl Dixon's, Graham Lusty's Falcon S-Pack, and just restarting it there. Castrol chase and a tremendous battle going on between the initial race leader, Greg Hansford, in the Mazda number 1, and now Peter Fitzgerald challenging him and hitting the lead on occasions in car number 5. Fitzgerald getting pretty cagey, I suspect, John Bowe, in trying to put the pressure on while Greg Hansford tries to be very sympathetic with the Mazda.
That's right. Well, it's actually John Smith, I think, in the car, but they are looking very good. They've got a good package there, and I think they'll be looking good at the end of the day.
Morning, Peter Brock.
Good morning.
Welcome back to Mount Panorama. Are you having a lovely time?
I am. I'm driving along here smelling the, it's not so much breakfast smelling like rashers of bacon. I'm smelling diff oil and brakes and all sorts of things.
Isn't this all faintly ridiculous?
It is, mate. It is.
Peter, you've got a V8 Commodore in front of you, 2 places forward and outright. You're 9th, it's 7th. What's going on?
Well, he's in one of the Group A homologation cars.
Yep.
And so it's got a little bit bigger tyres and bits and pieces, but basically I'm just driving to what I reckon this car feels like it wants to do.
Just 1 hour and 20 seconds into the James Hardy 12 hour. The leading Mazda, car number 1 that was leading the race, has made its first pit stop, a very quick, efficient one indeed. But that puts Porsche number 4 into the lead. That's Peter Fitzgerald from John Smith in Porsche number 5 in 2nd place. In 3rd place is car number 18. That's the Lotus of Larry Perkins. In 4th place behind it is car number 7. That's the Mazda of Gary Walden, but it's now scheduled for a stop, of course. Then it's the Holden Commodore V8, the SS car, that's in 5th place. That's car 43 of Richard Wilson, Troy Nicholson. And in 6th place is car number 21, Gary Rogers, in the Subaru RS Turbo that's been very quiet but efficient so far.
Well, the mountain looks a lot different now, I can tell you, from those early morning shots, but it's still the Mazdas, but they've swapped. We've had car 1 in the pits, so car 7 is now in the lead, but they're still 1 and 2, followed by the 2 Porsches, Will Hagen, and those Mazdas just look so pretty going around this track.
Well, they sure do, but this is just such a tight race. When car 1 came into the pits, 7 went by, so did Porsche number 4, and there was 10 seconds between the 2 of them. And there you can see the rival camps hot on each other's tail there, and so the battle really ensuing.
All right, as we go to the break, let's look at the overall placings, right as far as we can take them. The Mazda RX-7 car 7, then the Porsche, then the Mazda, then the other Porsche, the Honda NSX, which has been flying, given its early problems.
Lost a little bit of distance, but then the Nissan Skyline GTR up doing well there against the Falcon XR6, but it's doing sensationally well. A brace of MR2s bringing out the top 10.
And on to page 3, the Honda CRX going well as well. One of the Commodores, another Toyota MR2, which are really having a terrific race. A Ford Falcon SS and a Falcon S take us through to number 15. Back with more in just a tick from Mount Panorama. Folks, this is Bathurst. Beautiful city, rural one, of course. Population about 27,000. First settled back in 1815, declared a city in 1888 by Governor Lachlan Macquarie, and named after Lord Bathurst, who was the then British Secretary of State. Gee, it's a pretty town. Features some of the classic architecture of the late 19th century. But every Easter, of course, this very quiet rural community of sheep and cattle properties becomes the motor racing mecca that is Bathurst for the James Hardy 12-hour production car race. Pardon me. But it really is one of the prettiest towns in New South Wales, without a doubt. But John Bow today, it's all about speed and power and all of that going on the track.
Certainly is. It's an action.
You missing it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm not a good spectator, but I'm doing my best. But it's an incredibly close race. Alan Jones in the number 7 Mazda is extending his lead slightly over the number 4 Porsche, but of course the Mazda's got to make another brake pad change, which will cost them about a minute and a half. So really, it's very, very open, and I reckon it'll go to the wire.
As Will said to us in the break, there's no resting here.
No, there's no comfort zone at all for any of them, is there? Any of those 4?
Absolutely.
One little slip, you've got a whole change, and I mean, genuinely, any one of those 4 could win, John.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I must congratulate the Mazda team, though. They are so professional, basically made up of Mazda apprentices, and they are doing a tremendous job. There has not been a hiccup in any pit stop.
Just quickly, too, while we've got a bit of time, the story of the weekend for me is these TAFE kits up the back that put the Honda back together.
They've been doing
numerous other things.
They've been doing it for years. They're quite sensational. They had 7 vehicles in there at one stage, and they've put them all out again, and they're all working beautifully. What they do is amazing, and they have amazed overseas people in the work they've done and the information they've had on the vehicles. German motorsport head of BMW, Peter Floor, was flabbergasted to find they had all the measurements for his car.
Oh, good on them. I think that's great. All right, let's take you through what's happened over the last few hours. We've had a very, very eventful morning indeed.
And this is just part of it. Peter Brock, who had a spark plug problem and a bit of missing in the V8 engine, but look at that. The brake temperatures that they have to deal with when they're sorting out even normally occurring things, much less problems. And there was a problem for the Lotus. It's had a few, but it has the lap record of sensational 31.77, and that's an even bigger problem, obviously, for Tom Watkinson in the Corolla. Wasn't running that strongly in his class, and certainly wasn't going to run any more, but was pleased to be out of it, and quite okay. But then another rollover, and this was Jane Taylor later in one of the 3 Citroens fielded by Peter McLeod, the Citroen dealer from Wollongong. It brought on the pace car lap, the second of 2 25-minute pace car sessions, and quite appropriately too, because there was a lot of debris on the track and a lot of grit to be cleared. And then completing a roll, crash and burn sequence for McLeod was this one with Peter Jansen. They had 3 cars, and all 3 cars had some sort of a major problem, including the captain. So, and then this. Thank goodness the gate that was left open up in the back of a property at the end there of Mountain Straight, thank goodness it only let out a tame, friendly, placid horse, because it could have been a horrific incident. And it could have been horrific if it had been a wild one and or happened during the motorcycle racing yesterday. But as you can see, the horse was calm, and finally the problem solved.
In just half an hour since the pace car went away, Gary Walden's Mazda has sprinted to an advantage of 40 seconds over the Porsche of Peter Fitzgerald and Nicholas Luttweiler. The race is turning very much into a tortoise and hare affair. These Mazdas are lapping at 2 minutes 34 seconds and going even faster. So that's 2 seconds under last year's lap record. This pit stop, sensationally quick for Walden, 26 seconds. The Porsches, however, have a 4 pit stop advantage in the 8 hours remaining.
Nicholas Luttweiler, Will Hagan in the commentary box. How's the Porsche going?
The Porsche
just doing very well, Will. I'm really amazed how easy we can hold the pace at 39s and 40s. Dropping times.
You've been losing ground to the leading Mazda number 7.
Yeah, because they're running at about 36s or 37s, and we're doing our planned 39s, 40s. So this is intended, yes.
Nicholas, you're used to the classic tracks of Europe. What do you think of Mount Panorama?
I gotta say that Mount Panorama is just one of the best tracks I've ever been to. I really compare it a little bit with the Nürburgring, you know, the old one?
Yeah.
And I gotta say, this is the Nürburgring of the Southern Hemisphere here.
It's real road racing, isn't it?
It's real road racing, really, I gotta say.
Keith Carling, good afternoon, good morning at least. Will Hagan here in the commentary box.
G'day, Will. How you going?
I'm going well. How about that car?
This car's going like a little clock. That's fantastic, Will.
Is the problem...
All we've done is change 2 tyres, and the brake pad wear is negligible, so we're looking real good for the long haul.
Mark Brame, Will Hagan, how's the little Suzuki going?
It seems to be going well at the moment, Will, touch wood.
You've had a pretty busy time. Took you a long time to get into the class lead.
I think Henry said that time. I think he got a bit of a toe to do it. The car's going extremely well. They're top of the motor vehicle, and we've proven it before, and hopefully today it'll stay together.
I say you had a busy time trying to get past and to build a bit of a lead on that Corolla number 30, John Faulkner, Jeff Full. Have you seen him off now, though?
Oh, right, okay. Well, they're about a lap down then, I suppose.
No, same lap as you, mate. They're not far behind.
Are they?
Yeah.
I'm going to give me finger there, then, eh?
After the second pace car period, again of about 25 minutes, the delicious Mazda MX-6 pace car about to pull back into the pits and the field to get underway again. And the order is car number 1, the Mazda, in the lead, but still 4 cars on the lead lap, and 2 of those took advantage of the pace car period, Porsche number 4 and Mazda number 7, as the car pulls away to go in and make pit stops at minimal expense in time. And those cars in 2nd and 3rd place are now out on the track again together. So there'll be a real race on, and here they are. That is 2nd place, and car 7 is 3rd place in the motor race. 126 laps completed, 27 as they go across the start-finish line, and the Mazda goes for a sprint. Boxes the Porsche in a little bit, but the Porsche, I think, was content to be boxed in. Not in a hurry, and as Peter Fitzgerald and Nicholas Lloyd-Wheeler have said, they're doing their own thing.
Well, I've got Wayne Gardner with me. Hey, mate.
Hi, Tim.
You're really sending that Honda around there for a while?
Yeah, it's running well, and it looks, well, it doesn't look very good appearance-wise, but it seems to be straight and driving very well and reliable, not a problem there.
Just quickly, we had all sorts of problems. I mean, after you bent it, they put it back together, the tape guys, a bonnet got knocked off. I mean, it's a wonder you're out there.
Yeah, it's had its trouble in the last couple of days. You know, it all started when I was on a quick lap, and as you know, I put it into the wall.
Yeah.
And they couldn't straighten it out. The strength of the chassis is just too strong. And that's why it's been delayed, and apparently they finished, 2 or 3 minutes before the start of the race. I was still in bed at the time, because in fact I didn't think we were going to make it. And they phoned me, I phoned them up at about 6:30, and I said, well, what's happened? They said, no, it's going, and I surprised the hell out of me. I mean, the smash repair people did a great job.
Now, at one stage you were rounding up the Mazda.
Yeah, caught and passed a couple of them. In fact, I got down to low 34s, which is quicker than my qualifying.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's another second there, but my team has told me to, back off the car and nurse it a bit more, and it's got to last for 12 hours, not for 12 minutes.
You look like you have a lot of fun out there.
Oh, yeah, I'm actually having enjoying myself.
Yeah.
The car's very hot inside because I don't think they connected up the heating properly, and I think it's just blowing a lot of hot air through the car. But apart from that, it's nice to drive, and it's a pleasure.
I'm sure it is. Magnificent looking motor car, but then it'd want to be for 170 grand, wouldn't it? A great looking thing. Incidentally, I can just tell you quickly, and guys, you'd be interested in this. I don't know if Brocky's in the car or not, but Peter Brock's V8 Commodore has pulled up about 6 places in the last hour or so. So we'll have a look at that after the break. But I guess Will Hagan, he was vaccinated with the asphalt from here, wasn't he, Peter Brock?
Oh, yes. I remember seeing him debut here when he was a junior driver to Colin Bond. And since then, of course, 9 victories under the belt. He'd love a 10th, but I don't think he's nearly as hungry as he once was. I think he just enjoys the day.
He has some fun. Yeah, he always has some fun. All right, as we take you to the break, let's have a look at the class leaders in A and B. In Class A, the Suzuki Swift doing very well, then Corollas and another couple of Swifts.
and they're actually leading in outright position. There's the second page of them, but it's a very tight class, and most of the runners still going, and that's a commendation for the class and the type of car. We'll be back with more in a moment.
Old cars we've seen here over the weekend, Valiants and Minis, old Holdens, terrific. But these aren't old cars, these are brand newies, and they look fantastic. The two Mazdas and the two Porsches are having a battle royal out there on the mountain, and a good 5 or 6 laps behind them now is the Honda NSX, and then that's followed by the GTR Skyline, first of the Falcons, and a couple of MR2s. And there is car number 7, our race leader, as we join our commentators. Craig Denyer, g'day to you, and Kenny Douglas, how are you?
Good afternoon, Tim Webster. Well, 27 different makes or models of cars made up the field that started this morning. 8 different makes qualified in the top 10. 54 cars started the race, which this year, of course, is a real shootout between the supercars. The Mazda RX-7, the Porsche 968, the Honda NSX, the Lotus Esprit Turbo, and the Nissan Skyline GTR. $950,000 worth of motor cars sat on the first 4 rows of the grid alone this morning. Ken Douglas, that's not a bad price tag, is it?
It's pretty amazing. Of course, there's a limited number of people that can afford that, but I've got to say, when you see the car sitting there, you get a really warm feeling. Car 1 is on the screen at the moment, which is the beautiful Mazda RX-7, now sponsored by BP Visco. This is the Greg Hansford, Charlie O'Brien car, running second in the race, second to the Gary Walden car, and Alan Jones, who of course is doing the driving stint for that car at the moment. The Mazda RX-7 can are a fantastic little motor car. Some of their specifications include what? It's a 76-litre fuel tank in it, which is good for this sort of car. But of course, it runs with a Wankel rotary engine, a 13B engine, and that makes it unique in this particular race. Twin turbochargers as well, and electronic fuel injection. Car number 6, the Peter Brock Commodore, is one that's really picked up its pace in the last few laps too. It's moved up into 11th place outright, the V8 Commodore, after having some early problems, and Peter Brock now moving down through the dipper by the look of it, and in fine form. Yes, that's right. Peter's back into the class lead. He's been tussling with the V8 Falcon of Jim Baird for quite a while, but I believe that we may have Peter on race cam at the moment. Peter, are you there? Peter Brock? No, not just yet, I'm afraid. Peter's now just starting down Conrod Straight. They had some troubles earlier on in the day. Spark plug fouled, of all things. Yes, they came into the pits and actually changed the leads around when they replaced the plug to put the leads on the wrong spark plugs, and had to go out and come in again. Yes, I've got to say, when it went back out, it sounded like a V6 rather than a V8, but the team identified the problem pretty quickly and got them both out. We'll see if Peter Brock can pick us up now. Peter Brock, car number 6, going through the Caltex Chase. Are you with us? He's a busy man. I think the last time that Peter Brock raced a production Holden here at Bathurst, that's a stock standard production Holden, was back in 1969, some 23 years ago. Yes, that's right. Well, certainly the last V8. He did, in fact, run here 2 years ago with the V6 Commodore, but I think Peter probably wouldn't consider that to be a true effort. It would have to be a V8 Holden for Peter. The car is prepared by George Shepherd from Brisbane, who masterminded Peter Brock's 1-2-3 victory in the Repco Round Australia trial back in 1969. He also prepares the car regularly for Tony Scott, who's co-driving this car. Tony's a regular production car competitor. He used to run a V6 SS Commodore, and Brock and Tony were just an excellent combination. Both are quick, both are easy on the car, and that's as good as you get. So you're riding with the king of the mountain, 9 times Bathurst winner, Peter Brock, and this class, Class D, is a real battle between Holden and Ford. Ford, in the shape of Jim Baird, are running an S model XR8 Falcon, and there's been a real tussle between Peter Brock and also a bit earlier on Troy Nicholson in another V8 Commodore. Troy's dropped back a little bit, and we just see boot cam at the moment, Windsor Smith boot cam, looking at the back, going up into the cutting, and no one behind at the moment, and that's the way Peter normally has it around here. You can't see anyone behind him. What actually specification hold is this? This is the Holden SS model, as I understand it. Is that correct? That's correct, yes. another one of the teams is running the Group A version. You have a choice with the Commodores. You can run this particular car, which doesn't have the wings and the spoilers. It saves a little bit on weight, as opposed to going with the aerodynamic kit.
Very well this weekend is Bill Gillespie in car number 3. Bill Gillespie, Craig Denyer in the commentary box. Are you with us?
Yes, Craig, how are you today?
Fine. How's the Nissan GTR going?
Well, we're in endurance mode. We have been since Graham Nielsen started the car first thing this morning. So we're just tootling around. We're sort of, just trying to keep the thing on the track and conserve things and get through with as least amount of stops as possible, basically.
You're running 6th outright at this stage. Can you turn the wick up a little bit?
Yeah, I think I could, but I don't think it's worth it right now. I'm not really up to speed with who's in fifth or how far in front they are, or how much I need to turn the wick up basically to catch fifth place.
You've had no sign of the braking problems that the car experienced on the test day here some weeks back?
Absolutely not. In fact, we're still on the same set of pads that we started with this morning, and the same set of discs.
OK, we'll let you get on your way. Performing very well, the Nissan GTR, the car that has won the 2S1000 here at Bathurst for the last 2 years, but not in this form, not in production car form.
And we'll be back to the mountain shortly.
The athlete knows the better you breathe, the better you perform. The more oxygen you convert to usable energy, the more likely it is you'll be a winner. It's the same with cars in the James Hardy 12-hour. Twin-cam multi-valve technology has become the preferred choice of car companies seeking to get the most energy, or horsepower, out of every litre. The high-technology solution uses 4 valves per cylinder, 2 to suck in the air, 2 to exhaust it. That's one reason a small car like Peter McLeod's Citroën BX16V does about the same lap times as the conventional Holden Commodores with their 2-valve systems. And that's why 78% of the cars in the James Hardy 12-hour are twin-cam multi-valves.
This is the car that has been doing it so well. It was the second fastest qualifier in Group A. Mark Brame and Henry Draper, the guys that won the Winton 6-hour last year, were 7th at Sandown, and now have got themselves not only up into the lead in Class A, a fiercely contested class, although they're obviously slower than the outright cars, they flog them all day to the absolute capacity of the vehicle, and that vehicle, in what started off as a 53-car field, is lying 20th outright. Quite remarkable. 1.3 litres, non-turbocharged, it's fuel injected, it has electric windows, and unlike the Porsche 968 CS, which has gone to manual windows to save the weight of the electric motors in the doors, and as I say, Brame and Draper have the distinction of being a very well-matched pair, and this is the car that's leading Class B. In car 33, the Mazda Astina, with Christopher Walker, Andrew Wilson, Russell Becker, good kart driver, Becker, and as you can see, Falcon tyres along with the Nissan Skyline GTR that's in the turbocharged class, and 6th outright. So they're running on Otsu tyres, which is part of Falcon in Japan. Not so well known and one of the lesser tyre brands here, but nevertheless going very well. And now, appropriately, heading Class A, they are in 19th place outright. And in car 4, in 3rd place, the Porsche, the leading of the 2 Porsches at this stage, headed by the 2 Mazdas. And I'm not sure who's driving, Ken Douglas. Lloyd Wheeler, the head of Porsche Cars Australia. So welcome again, Nicholas.
Are you?
The Mazdas are putting on a lot of pace and giving you a very hard chase.
Yeah, that's right.
What can you do about it?
We're trying to drive as hard as we can reasonably go. That means trying to do 39, 38. That should be possible. And just start to push the Mazdas a little bit. I think we should be able to do that. But we'll see. It's still another 4 hours. And
it sounds, Nicholas, as though they're making you work. You're sounding a little bit more weary with it than last time we spoke. I say...
let me say again, Obviously, we're now in third position, and we're trying to do 38s, 39s. That's pretty comfortable for us. And, I mean, we still go another 4 hours, and we'll see. The race is over when it's over.
Yeah, you sound as though you're being pushed a bit harder yourself than last time we spoke.
Yeah, you have to understand that outside temperature is getting warmer, and that means that all engines are suffering a little bit. So to do 38s or 37s, you have to push a little bit harder than before.
Well, welcome to Motor Racing Australian style, and all I hope is that you both keep racing.
Yeah, thanks very much.
And the best combo wins.
Terrific. Okay.
So that big 4-cylinder 3-litre car striding off up Mountain Straight, and a nice reminder that you don't have to go to lots of cylinders and have very high revving engines to have a very effective motor car. Beautifully balanced car, the 968, evolved from the 924 that was done as a design exercise for Volkswagen Audi years ago. Then they didn't want it, and Porsche kept it. They've done it in their design department, and became the 944. Now the 968 has probably got more Porsche character and flavour now than it did have originally, and probably more accepted by traditional Porsche owners.
It's about 60 k's lighter, Will, than the normal Porsche 968, the Club Sport.
And got very big brakes, minimal interior trim, a very effective car for this purpose. And then car 48, an interesting one, Ken Douglas, the Honda CRX, has led the sports car class, the lone interloper there, in with the MR2s, and driving the car from Revolution Race Gear, George Santana. George, you led the class for a while, but then the MR2s got back at you.
Yes, it's a lot of hard work trying to keep up with these blokes. They've got more power, and they're handling pretty good. And as I say, we've got to really work overtime to try and stick with them, but the little Honda's really going very, very well, and it's great fun to drive. Wouldn't be dead for quits.
Well, they really are a sweet car, aren't they, the CRX? A remarkably fast one for 1.6-litre non-turbo. But you could fling them down the mountain, couldn't you? You're being squeezed there, are you? Stick up for your rights, George. Tuck in behind.
Maybe it's just a touch too quick for me, but we'll try and catch him next time.
Do you get a little bit worried about Skyline, where you crashed last year?
The thought has crossed my mind quite a few times. Probably every time I've gone over there.
Yeah, quite a few times, like about 158, eh? Or however many you've done of the laps.
Exactly, but it's made it more exciting. And I've learned the lessons. Next time, I'll wait for the slower cars to indicate clearly before I take a gap that suddenly disappears.
Well, keep it going. It's not the current Honda CRX, but keep at those MR2s. Do you think you can get back any distance on them?
We can certainly stay with them, as I have been with, I think it's number 20 up ahead of me. But, wow, it's a real tall order to try to go quicker than them. This morning the car was really good in the cold. It seemed to enjoy the cold weather.
George, we must go. Thank you very much. And as I say, keep at the problem. Like Nicholas Leutweiler, he's sounding as though the strain's a little bit harder than it was a few hours ago. And as it is through all the classes here, the little tiddlers, Class A, we've told you how hard they run, and Class B, that lead has changed a lot, where you see the Murray Carter car at one stage had a 3-lap lead, is now back to third in the class. We've seen the TX3 lead, now the Mazda Astina, and McLeod holding in there with one of the Citroens, and further back others of his entrants too shown there, but of course the Taylor car, Jane Taylor, is out.
The energy created to stop the Nissan GTR from 260 kilometres an hour at the bottom of Conrod Straight could also lift the 1,300-kilogram car 30 metres straight up in the air. 5 heavy braking applications each lap cause immense heat build-up, and that threatens to make brake fluid boil and disc brakes crap. That's the reason even these production cars need sophisticated cooling around their front brakes to get rid of the heat as quickly as possible.
This is the situation with the race lead in this fascinating race, 1,080 kilometres covered. So now 12 laps more, 80 kilometres more than the Tui's 1,000 in October, and they've just swapped the race lead, with car 7 going off into the lead now. The Gary Walden Alan Jones Mazda RX-7 ahead of car number 1, the Charlie O'Brien Greg Hansford car. And as I say, the race just continues to vacillate. Tremendous contest, and John Bowe, what are they doing, do you reckon?
Well, as Alan Jones likes to say, I think he's got his eyes on. He came out of the pits behind the number 1 car, and he's really charging. He knows that he has to make another stop to get some brake pads, which costs 90 seconds or so. And he'd be as fast as he could go at the moment, and doing a tremendous job.
It's the sort of instruction a race driver loves. It's what you got last year, wasn't it, when you had problems?
I suppose if a guy has to be replaced by a world champion, it's not so bad.
You don't feel as though you've lost your job to a shock?
No, not really. No, he's a great driver. Anyone that wins a world championship's got to be a great driver.
John, how well can these 2 cars take a thrashing in terms of brakes, in terms of engine temperature and so on?
Well, they're really doing well at the moment. Last year when we had the problems, after Alan Horsley, the team manager, said go for it, I drove it flat out, and it didn't miss a beat. They've now got better brake pads that they can get 4 hours out of. So, you know, I think the car's pretty strong, but those Porsches are lurking, and I wouldn't like to have money on anything at the moment.
Also lurking across the studio is Peter Fitzgerald and Greg Hansford, watching respectively the performances of the various cars. Tim Webster, are you keeping them apart?
I am. I thought I'd organise a bit of World Championship car bluing here. What do you think?
Fair enough.
Here they are. I tell you what, Greg Hansford had his eyes glued to the set. It's a great stoush going on out there, boys.
Yeah, well, I just hope it continues for everybody's sake. It'd be nice to have a really close race to the end.
Yeah, cars are going well for both of you.
Yes, yes. Actually, I would have liked to have been sitting back having a bit of a relaxation time at the moment, but we've given instructions to our drivers to pick the pace up a bit. We had a problem with car 4 in that we're only getting part throttle in the last stint, and a 4-pound hammer fixed that.
I understand when you say given instructions, and there he is in the car as we speak. Make the RX-7, your team, make the Porsches catch you. That's what.
Well, I've spoken to Alan Horsley 4 times on the radio now, and each time I've spoken to him, he says, "Can you pick the pace up a little bit?" So we're down to the, we're doing 36s there for a while, and as John Bowe said before, punishing the cars, brakes, revving them to the absolute limit, which I'm not sure was the right thing to do at this time of the day.
And listen, incidentally, we might try and have a chat to the car. You want to have a chat to the car? Try it, see what happens. Sure. Talk to your driver.
Sure. Ask him to come back in on the pit stop.
Nicholas, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, Nicholas, can you hear me? It's Peter.
Oh, hi, Peter. How are you?
All right.
Good.
Have you picked the pace up?
I can hardly understand you. It's pretty noisy with you.
He says, have you picked the pace up? He wants you to go another 2 seconds a lap faster.
Okay.
Rev it to 11,000.
Okay. Sorry, I can hardly understand you.
It's okay, we'll leave you.
Connection is not good this time.
All right, thank you, guys. Greg Hansford and Peter Fitzgerald, all the best. I guess it's just a war of attrition now. You've got a long time, because we've still got 3.5 hours to go.
Yeah, I think really we've got to, the day finally started to warm up, and that's what the Mazdas don't like, and I think we've just got to keep the pressure on them to make them run their cars hard, and basically it'll work or it won't. We are getting exceptional wear out of our Goodyear tyres, and our brakes are lasting well. We've had our brake change, so we should get through to the end.
And Greg, for you, I guess it's a matter of just staying out in front of them. Don't let them catch you.
Yeah, well, we've got to get a little bit further in front, because we've got one more brake pad change to do, which is, as John said before, again, 80 seconds.
Yep.
We've been doing 22-second fuel and driver changes, so that's quite good in and out, but the brakes are the worry.
Well, it all makes it very interesting for everyone at home. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Peter Fitzgerald and Greg Hansford. Let's have a look at some class leaders as we take a break. Class C, we've got the 2 Porsches, of course, then the Honda NSX, Ford Falcon XR6, which is going extremely well, and then the Falcon SS. Class C, Holden Commodore, 3 of them in a row, then the Falcon S, 2 of them.
Fast runners know about suspension. Their knees and ankles take a terrible beating as they put their power to the ground. It's no different for cars. The rules of the James Hardy 12-hour allow freedom of choice of shock absorbers, so by regulating damping pressures, teams can tune in special handling characteristics which wouldn't be there in showroom stock cars. But spare a thought for go-kart champion John Targett. Go-karts don't have suspension, so in his first motor race today, his sophisticated Hyundai is a whole new learning experience.
What a talent John Targett is too. What a talent Wayne Gardner is. You saw him coming over the top of Skyline there, crossed up in the Dogbone Honda, and that of course was before the accident a little bit further back on the track at McPhillamy Park earlier. The car, however, has been soldiering on superbly. It's pulled itself up to 5th place. It's dropped some laps now when the boss, the owner, who's probably got $250,000 invested in it, dropped a little bit of time and may perhaps have some sort of problem down in the pits, John Smales?
And well, yes, you're dead right, because for the last few laps, the Honda's been sounding a bit flat as it came past the pits. I grabbed Neil Lowe, the team manager, and asked him why the Honda sounds a little bit off song.
We've run into a bit of a problem in the clutch, and some of the clutch is actually disintegrated and jammed the gear linkage. It's jammed in 4th gear, and we're running right the way around the whole lap in 4th gear.
And you will be doing that, Neil, for the rest of the race?
Yes, it's only 4 hours to go. I mean, that's only a sprint for us. So 4 hours in 4th gear, it's not a problem.
You're 4 laps now in front of the Nissan in 5th position. Can you stay ahead for 4 hours?
We're very sure we can. As long as we don't run into any other problems, I'm sure we can stay there. And we're pretty well holding station at the moment.
Neil, it's been a minor miracle that you've got this far. The team must be very proud of what they've done.
Everybody here to do with the Dogbone Honda has done an incredible job. We didn't expect to have to get the TAFE College to look after us, but they did, and those guys are magic. They really are.
Now, however, as the time things start to fall apart in normal race cars, in a car like yours, what can go wrong in the next 4 hours?
I don't think there's anything else that can go wrong. We would have been in right up there with the leaders had we started on the same lap as them, but unfortunately we were 1 lap behind to start with, and we maintained that right through until we had a clutch problem. But next year, you watch out for the Honda.
Neil, best of luck.
Thank you very much.
I love optimism. It's like swimming in muddy water and you know the crocodiles are around somewhere. Very rare, John Bow, that you get out of problems once they start to build up like that. You started the race barely getting to the grid in a car that you haven't been able to race check before you went out there, and things generally get worse. Unlike the situation last year where Mazda did pull itself out of dreadful trouble.
With Neil Lowe for many years, and Dick Johnson's team, he is a very positive person, but 4th gear all the way around this circuit would be a bit of a strain on the car. Maybe at the next stop they can perhaps have a look at the linkage and see if they could free it, because I can't see it lasting for another 4 hours. If it does,
it sounds a dreadful strain on the car, and there's a very similarly configured car. Mid-engine, in other words, the engine behind the driver, but ahead of the rear wheels, unlike rear-engine Porsches and Renaults and all sorts of things many years ago. But this one costs 40 grand, so you get 4 of them for the price of a Honda NSX. You don't have quite as much fun because this car is fairly similar weight. It's got a little 2-litre transverse engine where the Honda V6 has a 3-litre, sorry. And so this car doesn't go half as hard. It's a very pretty looking little car. And Neil Bates has entered the car, Juan Manuel Fangio, Rick Bates and Peter McCabe have all been driving the car at various stages and amazingly have it up in 9th place outright. It's covered 166 laps completed by comparison with 179 for the race leader. And in the last hour, there's been as much drama as there was in the previous 7. Let's have a look at some of them.